Attacking me is one thing, but attacking my patients, I will not let that stand. Those were the actual words of Dr. Stephen Courtney, one of America's preeminent orthopedic surgeons and premier FDA-approved surgical tool developer, holding 18 patents and 15 trademarks. When he set out to get justice to protect and defend his stellar professional reputation, after he was maliciously attacked by bogus medical malpractice complaints that the Texas Medical Board later determined to be absolutely false, he fought back and waged a 5-year legal battle that pitted him against his former medical partner, his ex-wife's boyfriend, a former federal prosecutor, and a medical malpractice lawyer, resulting in a landmark $10.9 million verdict victory. This unbelievable legal nightmare story of jealousy, envy, greed, and revenge, burner phones, a former federal prosecutor destroying evidence, a dangerous and irresponsible imposter posing as an FBI agent using the ridiculous name of Inspector Gadget, all of whom used Dr. Courtney's stolen confidential patient information, are just some of the mind-blowing ingredients in this real-life, spine-tingling story of Dr. Courtney successfully winning back his reputation. Today, the Insider Exclusive's Justice in America news team sits down on location in Plano, Texas, with Dr. Stephen Courtney, his lawyer Michael Alfred, partner at Barris Law, Stephen's wife Lori, and some of his key staff, to tell why Dr. Stephen Courtney fought so vigorously to protect his reputation, because these predators, using their law licenses and medical degrees as weapons, viciously tried to inflict as much professional embarrassment and financial harm as they could for their own profit, and would have been free to do it again and again to other victims. Today, Dr. Stephen Courtney lets his patients speak for him at his Advanced Spine Center that he opened in February 2018.
My name's Mark DeWitt, and I've known Dr. Courtney for some 5+ years. He's done 2 of my friends' surgeries, and then he did mine as well. Mine was a 4-level cervical fusion, C3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Surgery was perfect. Then, probably an hour after the surgery, I had a clotting issue with my drain tube. Dr. Courtney was called, was back at the hospital within 10 minutes, and had me back into emergency surgery where they had to correct the problem. He was thorough, he was precise. I mean, it went off without a hitch.
I had a friend who had had surgery with Dr. Courtney here in the Dallas area, so I got his contact information and I called his office. They were wonderful at the office. They got me in with just a couple of days, and I drove up to the Dallas area, brought all my test results and dropped them off at his office. He reviewed everything, so when I went in to meet with him, he had all the information that he needed and went over everything. And I told him how, scared I was about what they were going to do to me surgery-wise. I told him what the previous doctor had told me and how I just was terrified at what could happen. Dr. Courtney spent probably an hour and a half with me, reviewing all of my test results, showing me everything on the CT scan, talking to me about my prognosis, alleviated so much of my stress and my worry. When I left his office, I felt so much better about what I was facing. So he talked to me in the office about what the procedure was going to be like, what I needed to be doing in the meantime, that his office would take care of, contacting my insurance company and getting everything approved. He talked to me about exactly how the procedure would go, what kind of equipment he was going to use. He talked about how he had his own equipment, why he developed his own equipment, but I had a choice. I didn't have to use his equipment. He had access to other medical equipment that he could use for the implants, and the choice was mine. And so I took some literature from him and read up on it, and I called him back when I went in for my next follow-up appointment and told him I was perfectly comfortable using the equipment that he had developed. So I contacted Dr. Courtney's office. They got me in with in about 48 hours for an appointment. And after we talked about the surgery, made plans for that, I made a decision to go forward with him. I felt very confident in his ability to take care of the problems that I was having and to relieve the pain that I was in. He put me in the hands of his staff. His staff was amazing, getting everything arranged, taking care of the insurance, getting me set up with the hospital. The hospital that I had the surgery done at was awesome. The staff there, again, took great care of me. Dr. Courtney was right there. I had surgery within 2 weeks of seeing him, and when I woke up after surgery, I was 99% pain-free. I was so grateful at that point. Sorry.
What's that? Emotional?
Yeah, I was in such pain. Sorry. Yeah, it's okay.
Talk about it.
Well, the pain was so bad before the surgery, I couldn't sleep. I couldn't do anything. When I woke up, I just was so happy that I didn't have that pain. And by the second day, I had no pain whatsoever. It was such an amazing relief, and I was so grateful that he actually did what he said he was going to do. And so now here I am 2.5 years later, and I've had no issues, no problems, no pain whatsoever. I live in Costa Rica now, and I am very active. I go hiking, zip lining, ride my four-wheeler, and I live a very active lifestyle. I put a lot of stress on my body, and I've had no problems whatsoever since I had this surgery.
This is Michael Alfred, and I wanted to take this time to give a unique perspective, not only as Dr. Courtney's lead trial counsel, but also as one of his patients. Dr. Courtney performed a 3-level fusion on my cervical spine on November 8th from my C4 or 5 level to my C6, 7 level. I've had chronic pain for 10 years with a diagnosis of severe stenosis in my cervical spine. And it was getting to be debilitating. I had lost pretty much all feeling in my left arm. The pain, it was radiating through my neck into both shoulder blades and into both arms, all the way down to the hands in both arms. And in particular, on my left side had gotten very severe to where I was losing feeling and having numbness and tingling throughout my whole left arm. We are now 4 weeks and a couple of days removed from my surgery. You can probably still see the scar on my neck from where Dr. Courtney went through to access in what's called an anterior approach for this procedure. And I have to say, for the first time in 10 years, I am spine pain free. I view this as somewhat of a miracle. I cannot believe I was living through chronic pain the way I did for 10 years. And within the past couple of years, it's gotten significantly worse. And I just couldn't be more proud of Dr. Courtney and the job that he did, and just had to share that. So I wanted the viewers to see that in addition to proudly representing him as his attorney of record through everything that he went through for over a 5-year period, and it's still going since 2016, that, in addition to representing him, I'm proud that he was my surgeon and did an extremely complicated case and had a very successful result. And I am just thrilled.
This is the Insider Exclusive, live from Plano, Texas. is my great pleasure to introduce Mike Alford to the show. Welcome to the show, Mike.
Thank you, Steve.
Tell our audience a little bit about your law firm, it's Veris Law, and what you guys practice.
My partner, Jack Stick, and I formed our firm in January of this year. So we've been going, I guess now, for about 11 months. We specialize in complex, commercial, sophisticated business litigation with an emphasis on healthcare business disputes, representing physicians, physician groups, surgery centers, hospitals, practice groups. We also do a lot of construction law in typical business, contractual and fiduciary duty defense work and or prosecuting those claims. And we have found that in the business setting, there's not a whole lot of difference between a plaintiff and a defendant, because typically a defendant will have a good counterclaim and the plaintiff will have a good initial case, and that's kind of what we specialize in.
We are here today to talk about a really big case of yours, and it involves Dr. Stephen Courtney. Tell our audience a little bit about Dr. Courtney.
Well, Dr. Courtney is a twice or double board certified spine surgeon. He has been a very accomplished spine surgeon in the North Texas area, located in Plano. He was originally with a group called Plano Orthopedics and Sports Medicine Center, a very esteemed, well thought of group of physicians here in Plano, Texas, and was with them for close to 20 years, and then spun off on his own, frankly, as a result of the case that we're here to talk about. And he has been very successful going out on his own. He also started his own hospital, Eminent Medical Center. He also has his own device company called Eminent Spine that is also very successful. So Dr. Courtney is a very sophisticated, smart businessman in addition to an excellent surgeon.
Tell us about the case.
Wow, where to begin? It's one of the craziest cases that I've ever had in my career. I've been practicing now since 2000, so quite a few years under my belt so far, and it's the most unique fact pattern of a case that I've probably ever had. It all started in around 2016 when Dr. Courtney discovered that he believed anyway, or suspected, that his patient charts had been accessed unlawfully by somebody. He had a good suspicion as to who it was, but he started getting multiple medical board complaints and multiple alleged malpractice letters, all from the same source. And he came to me through a friend that had referred him to me. And one of the first words were, "Mike, somebody's accessed my charts." So I said, okay, this is unusual. Let's dig into it. And the more we dug into it, and the more complaints began to arise with the Texas Medical Board from patients who thought lovingly of Dr. Courtney, supported him. There'd be no basis for those types of complaints coming from these patients. And then 3 lawsuits were filed against him by the same attorney, patients who had no connection to one another. We started looking into it and thought, this is crazy. This is weird.
Now, this same attorney, who is the attorney, by the way?
Kelly Libby, who would ultimately be a defendant in this case.
It seemed kind of odd, right? I mean, you're a lawyer. That all these, there were 24 or 25 medical complaints filed against Dr. Courtney. I think it's important to understand that many of these patients didn't even know that there was a complaint filed. They weren't involved with filing the complaint.
Correct.
That is so out there that I can't believe it, that the attorney would not know that this would come back on her, right? It's amazing. I will say, jumping ahead here, that all of those claims, most of them were, the great majority of them were dismissed without merit. They had no merit, right?
Correct.
Back to the story, he suspects that they're coming from some insider, right?
Yes.
Who is that insider?
That was another physician at the same clinic, Plano Orthopedics and Sports Medicine Center. His name was Dr. Cameron Carmody, and he was the other spine surgeon at what we call POSMIC, Plano Orthopedics and Sports Medicine Center. That practice had two of multiple specialties. There would be two hip guys, two ankle guys, two, on, and there were two spine surgeons that were there, and that was Dr. Courtney, my client, and Dr. Carmody, who would also be another defendant in this case.
So let me stop you there. He was accessing illegally Dr. Courtney's client database.
Yes, Dr. Courtney alleged that he was violating HIPAA, violating other health laws to access those charts. And it turns out when this was discovered in 2016, Dr. Carmody had been accessing Dr. Courtney's charts without authority, as Dr. Courtney has alleged, and ultimately a jury concluded the same, going back since 2008.
Almost 1,500, a little over 1,500 clients. Now, what's the motivation for him accessing this database that he wasn't supposed to?
Right. Dr. Courtney started his own device company, as I mentioned earlier, in 2008. In that device company's Eminent Spine, there was jealousy between the two physicians over that. Dr. Carmody was jealous of Dr. Courtney starting his own device company. And from that point on, Dr. Carmody hired a lawyer of his own who would be another defendant in this case.
He was a former assistant U.S. attorney. His name is what?
Bill McMurray. Bill McMurray came in and began representing Dr. Carmody in that time frame. And
let me stop you here. From my understanding, supposedly Dr. Carmody went to him and said, I think basically I know there's a doctor in the clinic where I work that may be putting profit ahead of safety, right? By putting his own devices in the patients that he was treating. And guess what? I've come up with 3, or a number of them, cases where one of them died in the surgery room.
That's what Dr. Carmody alleged.
So it was proving his case to this former U.S. attorney.
The patient who wound up passing away did not occur until 2015, and it was from cardiac arrest unrelated to the procedure that was being performed. But in 2008, though, when Dr. Carmody began accessing Dr. Courtney's charts without authority and working with Bill McMurray, Dr. Carmody believed that there were various compliance problems with using your own devices and or getting approval from the Food and Drug Administration for that. And so he went to Dr. Carmody went to Bill McMurray, and they started using this information to try to get Dr. Courtney criminally prosecuted under federal law.
Now, let me ask you, doctors go to medical school to learn how to be doctors. Now we've got this Dr. Carmody, who all of a sudden becomes a silent investigator. And he is trying to get Dr. Courtney prosecuted, as you mentioned, criminally. Why is he doing this? What's the motivation?
Based on the evidence that came out through the prosecution of the case in the deposition testimony, it became apparent that, again, Dr. Carmody was jealous of Dr. Courtney. They competed for referrals within the same practice. Dr. Carmody became an investor in a competing spine company. And there was Dr. Courtney with his spine company, or spine device company, that was taking off and having a lot of good initial early success.
So it was kind of all about money, wasn't it?
I mean, when is money not part of the motivation? But I think there was professional jealousy, frankly, as well, that was driving it too. Because Dr. Carmody and Dr. Courtney initially got along. When Dr. Carmody joined Plano Orthopedics for the first few years, they got along well, but it seemed to turn when Dr. Courtney started his own spinal device company.
Dr. Carmody's lawyer, the former U.S. attorney, assistant U.S. attorney, has a list of Dr. Courtney's clients, patients. He should not have this list. Carmody shouldn't have given it to him. What does the lawyer do with this list?
After about 3 years, from 2008 to 2011, Dr. Carmody was unable, through Mr. McMurray, to get any traction to have Dr. Courtney prosecuted. So there was a meeting in December of 2011 between Bill McMurray, another one of his colleagues, and Kelly Libby's father, Bill Libby, and Kelly Libby at the law firm of Kelly Libby's father. So Kelly Libby has a father, Bill Libby, who is a very successful personal injury trial lawyer. And so they go to this meeting, and this is according to Kelly Libby's deposition and trial testimony. They have this meeting, and apparently Dr. Carmody wasn't even made aware of this meeting, according to testimony of Bill McMurray. And so they have this meeting between Bill McMurray and Kelly Libby and Bill Libby. And at the end of the meeting, a list of names was left on the conference room table. And that was a list of patients who had been treated by Dr. Courtney. The testimony varies between who you ask, but the gist of it is that, hey, there is some type of case that could be had here, a med mal case that could be had here. And there were discussions about what they should do next with that list.
And at that time, I understand from the documents you gave me, Kelly Libby's father, who's also a lawyer, said to her, don't use that list.
That's correct.
But apparently she did not. She did. And she filed. And why does any plaintiff lawyer take on a case? Because hopefully, you know, they feel the client is telling the truth. Apparently some of these clients never interacted with Kelly Libby, right?
Well, it's interesting because, yes, the lawsuit was filed in, I believe, September of 2016, Kelly Libby's lawsuit representing 3 of Dr. Courtney's patients. About a month and a half before that, Dr. Courtney starts to figure out what's going on, because in 2015, July of 2015, he is operating on a patient, the one that we talked about a few minutes ago. And that patient winds up dying on the operating table from cardiac arrest. Then a lawsuit winds up being filed on behalf of that family. And as a result of that lawsuit, there was discovery, there were subpoenas issued, and Dr. Courtney's medical malpractice insurance defense lawyer subpoena the medical examiner for Collin County. And in June of 2016, Dr. Courtney's lawyers received that information, and Steve, there is a crazy email that is obtained that was kept by the medical examiner's office. And it was from somebody named Inspector Gadget to the medical examiner.
Now, who's Inspector Gadget?
Well, we didn't know at the time, but we then learned that the 4th player in this case was the live-in boyfriend of Dr. Courtney's ex-wife.
And his name was Jonathan Root.
So Jonathan Root had a history with Dr. Courtney. And there was an intense divorce and custody battle involving Dr. Courtney's ex-wife and Dr. Courtney, where, in the state of Texas, it's rare to win full custody, but Dr. Courtney wound up winning full custody over his wife for the care of his kids. His wife had a lot of demons that she was battling. But Jonathan Root was either the live-in boyfriend or the actual wound up marrying her. We never really knew for sure. But he had also weaponized the Texas Medical Board against Dr. Courtney in connection with that custody case, and had a very long list of bogus complaints that ultimately were dismissed with, as having no merit by the Texas Medical Board. But that's who Jonathan Root is.
He was trying to stir up problems for Dr. Courtney by basically fraudulently filing these cases. And it's interesting because you mentioned he went by the name Inspector Gadget. He later claimed that he was an FBI informant.
He admitted that to Dr. Carmody. Mr. Root denied that, but Dr. Carmody said yes, he was posing as a federal agent on behalf of either or both the FDA and or the FBI. So yes, very crazy.
And jumping ahead again, even after the verdict, he is now, because the FBI denied that he was working with them, and he is suing them now for what? Lying or something?
Yes, it appears so, and that's in federal court in Sherman, and they are pursuing some type of case against the federal government in connection with his role as either an FBI informant or agent.
So you end up filing suit against these players. There's 4 of them involved, correct? And tell us what happens after that.
Well, we start getting discovery. There is a massive amount of stonewalling. We depose Mr. Root the first time, and he asserts his Fifth Amendment rights in his first deposition. But what we wind up later discovering throughout the case is that through text messages obtained through Kelly Libby's phone, phone records obtained from Mr. Root's phone, and text messages obtained through Mr. McMurray's phone, that Jonathan Root was in possession of the list also, the patient list. And he was calling Dr. Courtney's patients, posing as this Inspector Gadget, being anonymous at first, and was recruiting them, referring them to Kelly Libby for representation. And so Kelly Libby wound up in their emails where Jonathan Root is then, after he had exposed his true identity to some of these patients, 2 of them were Alan and Christy Tarrant, was saying that you should contact Kelly Libby. She is going to do a class action lawsuit against Dr. Courtney, was going to win tens of millions of dollars.
All motivated by money.
Yes, I think also Mr. Root was motivated by revenge.
Yeah, and his relationship with Dr. Courtney's ex-wife. Okay, so there's another entity that gets involved here. Jonathan Root has a good friend working at a local TV station. What is it, WFAA?
Yes, Mr. Root said that he had a relationship with a TV reporter, investigative reporter, Brett Shipp of WFAA.
Who no longer works there. Yeah, he goes to him and said, basically, we had a big story.
That's what Jonathan Root says, is that he had the relationship with Brett Shipp and would expose all of Dr. Courtney's business dealings and everything else. And Dr. Courtney was like, there's nothing to expose, but whatever. Mr. Root had threatened to contact Brett Shipp even earlier during the custody battle, right, as well. And so we now have documented instances where Mr. Root claimed to have this relationship with Brett Shipp, and lo and behold, Brett Shipp enters the picture.
And then there are 2 TV shows subsequently produced. They have Kelly Libby on there, on the first one, with some patients.
Correct.
And basically because it's on the news, people kind of believe, hey, that's the truth.
Well, not only that, Steve, but here, I think nationally, Dr. Death, Christopher Dunch made news, but it was especially prominent in the North Texas area because he was a North Texas spine surgeon and neurosurgeon, if I recall correctly, who was infamous for all of the harm that he caused, and for the medical board not catching it soon enough, some would say. And Brett Shipp sensationalized the story by comparing Dr. Courtney to Dr. Dunch, Dr. Death, in the opening line of the first show.
Right, and Dr. Dunch ended up going to prison.
Yes, and there was a Netflix series made out of it, and it's well documented.
So Brett Shipp thought, hey, I'm going to capitalize on this. I'm going to be well known, blah, 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 right? Let's talk about some of the strategies. When I first looked at this case, I thought, hey, this was a defamation case. There's a lot of people to sue, right? But it ended up being a stolen intellectual property case, correct? Let's talk about why you decided to pursue that angle rather than defamation.
There are actually 2 very important legal theories as an alternative to defamation that was selected. One was a misappropriation of trade secrets, and I'll talk about that in a second. The other was tortious interference with prospective business relationships. Me personally, I, from an intellectual standpoint, I believe that the tortious interference was the one that I enjoyed litigating the most.
For our audience, let's define tortious interference of the business, because from my understanding over a number of years, Dr. Courtney wrongfully and maliciously portrayed as a bad doctor, lost millions of dollars as a result of that because people see it on the news and they believe it's true, right? Let's talk, what does tortious interference of business mean?
It is the intentional or knowing interference, disrupting of either a current or a prospective business relationship based on either what's called another tort, which is a way of saying a civil wrongdoing, or an unlawful act. Mm-hmm. So the basis for the tortious interference here was a HIPAA violation, a violation of the Texas Medical Records Privacy Act, and or barratry. Barratry is the unlawful, illegal recruiting of clients by lawyers. And we've all heard of the example of
ambulance chaser.
There you go. You have somebody, we've all seen the movie Rainmaker, where you're having a runner, a paralegal, somebody like that, putting business cards literally on the patient beds of somebody in the emergency room. And that is the classic definition of barratry. But here we pursued that angle of barratry, in addition to the others, based on Kelly Libby and Mr. Root working together, where Mr. Root posed as Inspector Gadget to route the patients to Kelly Libby in the promise of tens of millions of dollars in a class action lawsuit. So that was one of the angles that we chose from a legal strategy standpoint.
Okay, smart lawyering. So my question here is this. You go to trial, you got 4 defendants, correct? 2 of them settle.
So Dr. Carmody settled about a month and a half before trial.
In other words, he knows that things don't look good for him.
I would have to suspect so, otherwise why would, there are other business reasons for settling, but he was also represented by a very smart lawyer, and the evidence was overwhelming, in my legal opinion, against Dr. Carmody.
For our audience, Dr. Carmody no longer has surrendered his medical license in the state of Texas, from my understanding.
That's my understanding. He has moved to the state of Washington.
Right. And he's not practicing medicine.
That is also my understanding.
So we have the former U.S. Attorney Bill McMurray. He settles too.
My memory is, I believe he settled the Friday before the trial was to begin on the following Monday, within a few business days of the start of trial.
The remaining defendants, Libby and Jonathan Root, are on trial. How long was the trial?
4 days.
And how quickly did the jury come back?
They came back that evening. It was about I think the case went to the jury around 2 or 3, and the jury came back around 7:30 or 8 p.m. that night.
And what was the verdict?
I believe it's one of, if not the largest jury verdict in the history of Collin County, Texas. It's about $10.89 million.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It was very hard fought.
Now, we are here also, as I mentioned earlier, to Dr. Courtney, sometimes our destiny is determined by avoiding the road that we end up following anyway. We're at his new clinic he's founded in, I think, 2018. And his business is very successful because he's legit. He's the real deal, right? What are you allowed to talk about after the verdict? What is happening with Libby and Jonathan Root?
They appealed the verdict. The case is set for oral argument this week, actually, before the Dallas Court of Appeals. The following week, I'm sorry, November 15th. It is set for oral argument then. There was also several sanction. Look, Steve, this case was remarkable because there were spoliation instructions against all 4 defendants.
And for our audience, spoliation, destroyed evidence.
Intentional destruction of evidence.
What was destroyed, by the way?
Well, it depends on which defendant you're talking about.
Anything that would make them look guilty.
Yeah, so Kelly Libby admitted to destroying the list of patients that she had. Dr. Carmody admitted and said that he destroyed his laptop and his phone in quite dramatic fashion, where he took a hammer and hammered it. Before he did that, he separated the SIM card and or the equivalent of that for his laptop, took them in 2 separate locations, smashed them, and got rid of them so that they couldn't be found there.
This sounds like a show called Dumb and Dumber.
And Dr. Carmody testified that he did that upon advice of his counsel, Mr. McMurray. Mr. Root then did a little different approach. He says that he had all of his information, and depending on when you ask him, on one occasion he said he had a bonfire in the backyard to get rid of it, or on other occasions said that he took all the information that he had to the FBI without keeping a copy.
The FBI did not confirm this.
Correct. And even the trial judge questioned the validity of that testimony because Mr. Root produced this so-called receipt from the FBI with no case number, nothing identifying about it. It said, yet here, I gave it all to the FBI.
Congratulations on the win, the victory. And we're so glad to be doing the show, and I really appreciate you for being on the show.
Thank you.
We have your clients here and some of their staff. So right now we're going to bring on Dr. Stephen Courtney and his wife, Lori.
Great.
So thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the time.
It is my great pleasure to introduce Dr. Stephen Courtney and his wife, Lori. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
I want to thank you very much for being here with us today because this is a remarkable case. As I mentioned to Steve, you never go to medical school expecting that one of your colleagues may be totally invested in destroying your career.
That's correct.
And kind of baffled about the whole thing. But let me ask you this. We've covered all the legal angles of this case with your lawyer, Mike Alford. How did this affect you? And walk us through, both you and your husband, walk us through when you first got a complaint from one of your clients. And I want to address one thing. There's no doctor on this earth that hasn't lost a client sometime, you know, in surgery, something unrelated, as the client was unrelated, their death. Walk us through how you saw this unfold.
I was with a big, large orthopedic group here in Plano. We all subspecialized, and Dr. Courtney was an orthopedic surgeon, a spine surgeon as well. So
One of your colleagues.
one of my colleagues did, exactly. So
And I understand in the beginning, you guys hit it off.
exactly. So he was there from 2001, and then in 2008, I started my own spine company, Eminent Spine, which is a manufacturer of spinal implants, and that I think it was a trigger point for them to start doing what they were doing.
Well, let me ask you a question. As I understand it, at your old clinic, there were 2 spine surgeons, there were 2 knee surgeons or whatever, right? So when a patient comes into the clinic, right, who gets the case? Is it just arbitrary, okay, this is your case, or do they come into the clinic and say, I want Dr. Courtney?
But it's a combination of both. If I was in clinical on Tuesday or Thursday, I would see the patient, or if a patient specifically asks for me, because I've been here for such a long time, they would be on my schedule. So it depends who's available.
Yeah, because I'm trying to understand why Dr. Carmody, who was your colleague, who started this whole thing, why he would even invest time rather than complimenting you on inventing FDA-approved medical devices, right?
Correct.
Why do you think he was motivated to do this?
I've been doing biomechanics for 37 years, and some people don't see that. They see me as a spine surgeon, but in my background, I have a very wealth of knowledge in biomechanics and how implants are developed. So in 2008, when I started this journey of making my own spinal implants, I think he just got very jealous that I was able to do this. And that level of expertise to do that is just not just given away. And I don't think he could do it. We were both very busy spine surgeons. I just think he got consumed with me developing implants. And also number 2 is getting them approved by the FDA. And I'm very efficient at doing that. And I do it myself with few consultants, if you will. But the root of the whole cause is I do the biomechanics, I do the testing for different facilities, and I know how to test it. And that book of spine business is a niche. So I don't think he could do it. I think he wanted to be me, but he just got jealous of me doing this, and I think he felt just very overwhelmed that I was able to do it and he couldn't do it, and just felt jealous and he couldn't do it.
That's really a defect of character. You know, rather than complimenting you, rather than working with you, trying to learn from you, take that action. I understand later on, didn't he invest in another competitive spine medical device company?
Right. He invested options for another company in town. Even though he didn't really invent anything, he invested money into that company. And the spine business is very competitive, but he didn't develop. He just, gave money to them so he gets some percentage of their company. It's a whole different pattern. What I was doing, I was actually making the implants, designing them, FDA approving them, and then getting them to market. And that's a massive undertaking.
So when you discovered, I think it was right after the first complaint came in, when you discovered and figured out that he must be the insider, right? Feeding information to some lawyer.
I would get these patient complaints, which I would see the same week. I said, well, did you complain to the Texas board against me? I said, Dr. Courtney, I'm not sure what you're talking about. So these patients names were being utilized and weaponized at the Texas State Board, not through the patient, but how he stole those patients and crawled through the computer system at where we worked at. So I used that information and just sent bullet points of wave of Texas board complaints down to Austin without the patient even knowing about it.
How did you figure out it was him then?
We started doing an internal audit ourselves, and Lori was working with me at the time at the clinic as well. And anytime you touch that computer, it's going to leave a mark on you. Right. So we started doing an internal investigation. First, we found 10 patients. And then as the months went by, we found 428 patients with his name, my Mr. SPC.
Going in and look at your patients.
Going in my patient, and they're not his patient to begin with.
And the rule of thumb is another doctor needs permission from the other doctor to view.
No, needs permission from the patient.
These patients did not give this individual authorization to do that. And but there's a log of massive information of when he was penetrating these people's charts.
1,571 patient chart.
You, Lori, are a healthcare professional too.
Yes, I am.
What are some of your credentials that you have?
At the time then, at Plano Orthopedic, I worked as his medical assistant. As we left and started our own practice, I became practice manager. I'm still medical assistant. And I went back to school and I have my x-ray license. So I do x-ray tech.
Now you've discovered that he is the culprit.
Correct.
What do you guys do at that time? You're not involved with lawyers yet, right?
No. At that time, I brought it to the board of the orthopedic group, and they found that out, and he was expelled within a month.
Did you ever confront him personally?
No, I did not, because it happened so fast, and we found out so quickly. And then when I got that information, I gave it to the board of Plano Orthopedics, and within 1 month he was voted off. He was expelled from our group because that behavior, number one, it just is not logical.
When you say expelled, fired.
He was terminated from the practice.
After that, he then filed suit against me and Plano Orthopedics about a month later.
For wrongful termination.
Something similar like that, I'm sure.
At this time, you are involved with a lawyer. You have somebody representing you.
Yes, we did.
And what was being done then?
At that point, we were still investigating how many charts he had penetrated.
The internal audit was a long process.
Long process like what? How long?
Months.
Probably closer to a year.
This is after he's terminated, correct? And now you're dealing with another lawsuit that he's suing you personally and the clinic for terminating him, right? Okay. So let me ask you something. You know, your goal in life and what you love the most, and you're very unique, is doing surgery and inventing medical devices. Now you're dealing with something totally unrelated to never been dreamed of in your career chart, right? What are you thinking about? What are you talking about with each other?
It was shocking. There were times in clinic, we'd say, if you were our patient, we would see you on Tuesday, you schedule a follow-up appointment to come back in 2 weeks. And 2 days later, we get a Texas Medical Board complaint filed by you. It just didn't make any sense.
Many times those people did not know.
They did not know. Their PHI was stolen, it was trafficked, and they were using it to make fake complaints, trying to intimidate him to settle.
We're going to get into that in a moment, but it just boggles my mind that a lawyer would file a complaint on behalf of a so-called client, and the client doesn't even know about it.
Well, all these patients said, Dr. I'm not sure what you're talking about. Yeah. And my patients, I speak very openly to my patients because I have nothing else to hide. So what he did is said, I'm not sure what you're talking about. I'm here to get treatment from you, not to have my PHI stolen. Like, I'm not trying to turn you into the Texas State Board. Like, you're trying to help me out. Why would I want to do that? It makes no sense, you know? So these guys, they keep getting all these patients, and they're like, I don't know what you're talking about.
So during those 5 years, and you saw the real legal process working in your favor, okay? You have to do the investigation, you have to go to trial. How was your personal life going on? You know, you lost a lot of business, especially when this was broadcast on TV, right? And what were your thoughts when...
This type of behavior from these people, I just took me a while to get my head around it. Yeah. If you're thinking logical, it's hard to think illogical thoughts. But the more I kept uncovering how they were doing their business, still in my patients' charts, or patients' charts, and tracking those to malpractice attorneys and getting together as conspiracy people to funnel that to malpractice attorneys to get money from them to sue me, which just was beyond, I just couldn't figure it out.
I mean, it was all about greed, basically.
That's all it was about, greed, because I was busy, but when this went through in 2016, my practice took a dramatic.
Let's talk about that. You lost millions of dollars. After the 2 shows were broadcast, there were many people that obviously thought, hey, you're a bad doctor. And there was another bad doctor, or surgeon, who ended up going to jail, and the television station capitalized on the fact that, hey, I guess this town is full of a lot of bad doctors. Let's get him on the news, right? Did anybody ever apologize to you?
We have asked Mike, my attorney, we have asked numerous times to take the story down. There's not been an apology. There's not been a follow-up story.
There should be a follow-up story. Channel 8 was misled, given false information.
I am really surprised they didn't investigate it before they put it on the air.
And there's bad doctors, don't get me wrong. Yeah. Also, there's bad newscasters. There's bad everything. They're people. Yeah. But for them to target me like that and the way they did, it hurt me. It hurt my family. It hurt a lot my wife. It hurt my patients. And these patients I have, I speak very clearly to these people. Like, then they're so scared and like, Dr. Courtney, what have you done? I've done nothing.
When the story first aired, we had to go to clinic the next day. And I told him, I said, you know, I know it's all false, it's fake. Just hold your head up, keep it up, and let's go to work. I mean, that's what we do. We're here to serve the patients that we take care of. Mm-hmm. And we were a little anxious going into the office because we're such a big group, and you know, everybody saw the news. And the phones were ringing, it was loud, and I was shocked because it wasn't people complaining about him. They were calling, it was all of our patients that saw the story were calling saying this is BS, and I'm here to support.
They were also calling the station, and the station was ignoring it.
They were. They emailed the station, told them they got it wrong. They called, told them they were wrong.
And they've never run a correction story, have they?
They have not at this time.
So this one must have made, you said it hurt your family, it hurt your patients and everything. And I remember we start this show saying, you can screw around with me, but don't say anything about my patients, right?
Because I'm an orthopedic spine surgeon, and I'm very focused on what I do in the operating room. And those patients feel that when they come to my office, when I show them what their pathology is, you know, and it is what it is. So when things have been made up and falsified against me in my profession, and thus in where I'm from, that doesn't sit well. Right. And it's not going to sit well with anyone. And so it didn't. But the way they spun that story, and they still were not man enough to, professional enough to take that story down, at least give them an opportunity to tell what really happened, really.
It still comes up on a daily basis.
Let's talk about Jonathan Root. Okay, what was his motivation?
His motivation, he was a live-in boyfriend with my ex-wife. We've been married for 22 years. She had addiction issues. I've received full custody of my children. I have 5 children.
She had anger issues.
She had anger issues, and so this Jonathan Root character.
He wanted to be the hero.
He wanted to be the hero to help her out. I never met the person ever.
That's kind of weird because he has no professional credential. He's a scammer.
Everyone that came into the case, he would file complaints.
Now let's talk about Libby, the lawyer, the medical malpractice lawyer. It sounds crazy that she would file these complaints on behalf of people that they're not even complaining.
She dug 3 of these patients up, 3 over, they would cold call these patients, Root would, call them out of the blue, and then they'd feed those patients' names to Libby, and she'd sign them up.
It's in her own text messages. She admits it.
Yeah, it's in her text messages. She signed up 3 of them, only 3, and 3 of them were still bogus complaints anyway. But they want their money too. But Libby's job is...
They were extorting money from you, basically.
Extorting money that she just left on her own started her own law firm in 2016. And that's when the stuff started going on. And her dad, who's apparently an influential attorney here in town, told her not to do it back in 2011. In 2016, she started a law firm. She got the hit list, and she went through the list in detail.
Well, she had the list in 2011. Right. She held on to it.
Let me ask you this. Your views on justice right now. I mean, congratulations on getting almost a $10.9 million verdict, right? Your practice is very successful now. People know the truth. But how do you think justice would be improved in this case with agencies dealing with these type of predator professionals?
The Texas Medical Board needs to overhaul their complaint process and what they pursue. I mean, I know that there are bad doctors out there. He's not one of them. But when they get complaints that are from ex-girlfriends or an ex-spouse, and the number that came in that were so outlandish, absolutely bizarre, there's got to be a way to improve that process.
Yeah, and that's one portion of the state board, but let's just use common sense.
Yeah.
This isn't hard to do, but for them to spend all the taxpayers' money, and when you get tagged a Texas State Board complaint as a physician, it goes on your record. It goes to all the hospital systems as well. You have to report that to hospital system, and if you do not, doctor, you would get kicked off their staff.
Yeah.
They can leverage that information against you, true or wrong, to kick you off that board if they want to.
All right. And then also not get hospital privileges.
Bingo. And also number 3 is to increase your in malpractice rates.
Yeah. Now, your medical malpractice rates, are they still high?
They quadrupled.
And how have you been received by the medical professionals?
Now that we've done this, we found all these crazy facts out, but what's it done for me? It hurt my practice. It hurt my, so we're moving forward, but the Texas Board was one. The other one was the civil court. The civil court, they got it correct. It took a lot of time and effort and money and time and Lori and Mike putting all these dots together. And to get this whole thing right, it was tricky. So the civil court got it right. There's a 12 jury in Collin County. They got it right.
Yeah.
Now the criminal side did not get it right.
Right.
So we've handed the criminal court in the DA in Collin County, we've handed them a prosecution package.
Over 72 of our patients filed formal complaints with the Plano Police Department with Detective Minton, and those complaints were then put together in a prosecution package and hand delivered to the DA.
These people did something wrong. They hurt my patients, they hurt me, they hurt my family, but they hurt those patients. Those patients deserve justice to get their credibility back too. They stole PHI. In this world of technology, the AI technology is not starting to come out. My God, if you can't even just solve this little problem with PHI in a computer system now, oh my God, wait till the AI gets in touch with it. It's going to be incredible. But the agencies are not doing anything about it. So the first time you go see a physician, you sign one form, the PHI form, HIPAA form. Why even sign it anymore if there's no teeth in this game? Right. Why even sign it? Why waste my time reading it? Mm-hmm. There's no enforcement to it. This is the most blatant PHI claim I know of. 1,571 patients have been breached. The criminal system has not done nothing about it.
Let me ask you this. Has any of your colleagues or people in this field come to help you try to get justice?
It's such a hot topic that I won't be a part of it. Yeah. Which I understand that, but I'm a part of it because I'm in it. Yeah. So my point is, if they can get away with stealing PHI, and the attorneys can get away not getting sanctioned by their bar complaints, right, what justice is there for this?
You can't impersonate an agent of the government. You can't say that you're an FBI agent and you're not. There's so many levels of...
If I go to the doctor, I don't want you to know my business. It's my personal health information, not yours. It's mine. So they stole information.
Ideally, what do you want to see happen here?
Ideally, I like to see the DA prosecute these people, criminal, because that's what they did. It's called criminal acts. There's another one of the players in this game was a federal former prosecutor, Bill McMurray. In deposition, he told Cam Carmody that, look, buddy, you violated 2 criminal statutes because you gave it PHI to Jonathan Root.
Yeah, his own attorney advised him.
His own attorney told him this. Like, I was in the deposition. Yeah. Like, oh my God. What I like to see from this, they should get prosecuted with the deeds, that they should be accountable for what they've done.
I had to wait until the trial was over, but I filed my own personal complaint against Kelly Libby with the Texas State Bar. Yeah. I observed her in court commit perjury. I've seen her do many things that an officer of the court should not be doing and should be sanctioned for, held accountable.
And nothing's happened with that.
My complaint against her went before the panel and was heard. It was not a fair panel, if you will. One of the attorneys on the panel was Price Johnson, who represented Kelly Libby in the same matter in which I filed the complaint. And so he was on the panel reviewing my complaint against her. He should have recused himself, and he did not.
Yeah.
So I then filed complaint because my complaint was dismissed without penalty. So I have a complaint that I filed against Price Johnson in regards that he didn't recuse himself from the panel. And it has gone to the level, I've learned a little bit about legal terms, I don't know, but to the BODA, Board of Disciplinary Appeals, is where that's being heard now. It was heard October 27th. We're just waiting for the results.
It's October 27th, recently.
It was just heard by BODA.
So we're slowly going through the judicial system to feel like we need to get justice on what these people did. And that's what we're doing.
Well, this show is going to help you because nobody's ever heard you talk like this.
This scenario, how this developed, is a bizarre story. Even I'm in it. Sometimes I have a hard time understanding it.
You can't apply rational thought to irrational behavior. And there's,
I'm not killing people in the backyard, throwing them in the creek, using them as creek filler. I'm not doing that. I'm not killing people. Just these crazy things, and then Channel 8, because of this crazy hit job on me, comparing me to Dr. Death, he got exactly what he deserved, to be thrown in jail. The guy was that's a different discussion, but do not compare me to that guy. Right. I'm a guy who's very passionate what I do. I help my patients. I've been here for 28 years in Plano, Texas. Mm-hmm. I'm smart enough to understand medicine, understand people, understand how implants are made and designed. I compete against multi-million-dollar companies as implant company. I know how the whole thing works. But when these people try to come attack me with jealousy and greed, little situation, that's a different discussion. Especially all the people they hurt, not just me and my family. Our patients, they are pissed.
I think too, as far as complaints against physicians, you said once you put it on the internet, it's out there. After the trial win, the phones were ringing here from all across the country, other physicians.
In support of you.
In support and to ask for help because they have similar situations, that they're facing false complaints. A physician in Fort Worth was also compared to Dr. Death, and he did nothing wrong. And so he's calling us saying, what did y'all do?
Maybe you ought to become lawyers.
They thought wrong. Yeah. I'm not following anything. If it doesn't smell right where I'm from, it's not right. And it doesn't smell right, this is not correct here. And what these people did is illegal, it's wrong, it's unethical. Yeah. And they thought they were going to get away with it. And they didn't get caught. They got caught. They start crawfish tailing back off each other, point fingers at each other.
They all blamed each other.
They're destroying computers. They're destroying burner phones. They're destroying the list. Kelly Libby put her list in the poopy dopper at her healthcare daycare thing. Yeah. Like, what is this? John Root's burning boxes of stuff in his front yard, in his backyard, medical records, because he didn't want to get caught. They got caught, and they should be held accountable for what they did in this area. This mess is not going away.
In some of Libby's text messages that were found throughout the case, she was texting the other side counsel saying she was trying to get his license. She wanted to take his license, and she wanted to get him indicted because if he gets indicted, his insurance will pay. So she was trying to manufacture this class action lawsuit.
Evil.
You do not do that. She should not be practicing.
Forging Texas State Board complaints and submitted him to the Collin County Court as legal documents.
That's what they're sanctioned for. But a minuscule amount of money, what, $5,000?
$5,000 for Libby and $1,000 for Franco, but both also have 10 hours of ethical training, continuing legal education.
Well, we certainly hope that this may be on the road to justice, in our series, because more people, it is outrageous.
It's happened throughout the United States. So if you have a competitor against you, or against someone who just doesn't like you, or just obsessed with you, like
single white female, fatal attraction.
That's disturbing. That's not right in medicine.
We have with us today also your son, Brent, and your right-hand PA person, Megan Whitmore, correct? We're going to bring them on right now. It is my great pleasure to introduce Brent Courtney and Megan Whitmore. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Brent, you work with your dad. You have a distributorship, a separate company. What is that company?
GTR Medical Group.
What does it do?
It's a device distributorship for pedicle screws, cages, stuff like that for the spine.
Your dad has invented.
Correct. Correct.
And that's Eminent Spine Company.
Correct. And then I also have a tissue bank, so I can sell human tissue, donor tissue throughout Texas and also the U.S.
And who do you sell it primarily to? Labs?
Hospitals, ASCs, other distributorships.
And they use it for bone grafting usually?
Correct. Correct.
And as I asked you before the show, I was unaware of the fact that there's different qualities or types of bone, correct? And tell us a little bit about that.
So there's cortical bone, there's cancellous bone, there's DBM bone, all different types of bone. There's cubed bone. They make it in all different types and shapes and sizes.
Now, Megan, you work right here, don't you?
I do, yes.
And you are a physician assistant, right? Certified.
I am.
And what exactly do you do here in the clinic?
So we see clinic patients on Tuesday, Thursdays. I'm with Dr. Courtney, but then I'll see my own patients. And then Friday is PA clinic. So I see all the patients on Friday. But it's just, we see about like 20 or so on our clinic days, and then we operate Monday, Wednesday. So I am doing all like the pre-ops, getting everything ready for surgery Monday, Wednesday, and then seeing all the patients.
So the reason we're here today is this horrible nightmare of a story that your dad went through, your whole family went through, which was very unjust, false accusations. And how did that affect you? I'm going to ask both of you. How did it affect you in the clinic, in your business? Was there any reverberations from him being accused of being a bad doctor, et cetera, in Eminent Spine?
Yes, so it absolutely did. So I actually lost several accounts when the original story was ran on the GTR medical side. And at the same time, 2016 is whenever we launched the hospital, Eminent Medical Center in Richardson. We were out of network, which was difficult because you can't get in network because it takes time to deal with the insurance payers and negotiations and stuff like that. So we had some physicians still believe in what we were doing and what Dr. Courtney was doing with the hospital side. And then we had some physicians who just kind of just stepped back, walked away, didn't believe what we were doing and didn't want to be a part of it. Which is very difficult. When our first case was actually October 31st of 2016, and then 2017, it was very, very, very difficult to keep pushing, keep going, especially when physicians and colleagues and stuff like that were not really standing behind them and kind of behind what I was doing. And
I mean, to me, if I was marketing your dad's products, right, and there was a story out there, did they want to receive the truth, you know, the case that you were pursuing in court? Did they want to hear about it?
They did. And
did that change their minds?
In 2020, I think that was 2021, is whenever the final settlement kind of came out. That helped a lot, but prior to then, for those 4 or 5 years, it was very difficult. I lost some business on my end. I was actually kicked out of several hospitals here in town.
Kicked out meaning you could no longer.
So my distributorship could no longer service these certain hospitals here in DFW.
Even though it hadn't been resolved legally, huh? Just bad news out there, right? Do you find still today that any kind of backfeed on that right now?
A little bit. It's still there. I mean, there's
with a $10.9 million verdict, that must show justification, right?
It does, but it's still there and it's still out there, and it's very unfortunate.
What's your opinion of some of these conspirators that pursued this?
Just sick. It's sickening, honestly, that somebody would actually want to do that to, a very successful spine surgeon here in town. He has 5 kids. I'm the second oldest, older brother and 3 younger sisters, but it was very difficult, to say the least.
Being in the clinic for how long, a year?
A little over a year.
A little over a year. You obviously are very familiar with this story. And when they came down with a verdict of $10.89 million, obviously that was that was justification for all the false accusations that have been made against Dr. Courtney, right? Did you get any feedback from any of your clients? Did it affect your client base?
It kind of shows you, like, there's some patients that they've followed the case over the years and that they are like very big supporters of Dr. Courtney. And so if they bring it up, then, we'll discuss it. But, it shows you who your true, supporters are and things like that.
It's amazing. In the last 17 years, we have done a lot of stories, medical malpractice cases, legitimate ones, in any profession, whether it's in the police, whether it's the teaching field or legislative field or whatever, even in the medical field, there are bad people, incompetent, negligent people, right? And rightfully so, they were pursued and prosecuted in the whole 9 yards. But it is amazing, this story. This is why we wanted to do this story, because you have an excellent, well-respected doctor, falsely accused for all the wrong reasons, right? And now justice has come out. Now it's up to not only our story, but any other story that's done to bring out, to bring that good news out there. Because as you know, bad news always sells. It's headline news. When someone's acquitted of something, when someone's, the story is actually the truth, shows that they were telling the truth, that's on the back page, and your experience, I'm sure when that verdict came out, you must have been really joyful about that, right?
I was there and I was very excited. Very excited.
And still, one of the reasons we're doing this story is some of those lawyers, some of those individuals like Jonathan Root, like Libby, right? Still have not been properly taken care of in terms of having their licenses revoked or whatever, right? Any other final remarks about this whole experience that you've been through?
It's been very challenging for myself, brothers, sisters, obviously, my father, Dr. Courtney. I'm sure it's been hell, but we've all stuck together. I feel like as a family, we kind of came a little bit closer together and kind of supported each other in different certain ways. But it's just been a wild ride, to say the least, and hopefully justice gets served and these guys that are out there get what's deserved.
Right. Well, I want to thank both of you for being on the show, and keep up the good work. And hopefully we'll get everyone believing the true story.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It is my great pleasure to introduce Steve Courtney again to the show, and one of his clients and a well-known gymnast, Sydney Ewing. Welcome to the show.
Glad to be here.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about Sydney here. She's a patient of yours, well-known gymnast. You've treated the family in 3 generations.
No, that's correct.
Tell us about her.
So I met Sydney through her dad, Steve Ewing. And he's my age. I'm 59. Steve, he's probably 58 now. But he's a diehard Florida Gators fan. He played football at the University of Gainesville, Florida. I'm a diehard LSU individual, but I met Steve here in this area. Just been around this area, but me and Steve, we went to many LSU football games and Florida games together. And as life's gone by, he has children too, and so I know Steve through the Football Association just because we like LSU and Florida football games. I met Sydney, his daughter. I think Steve has 3 children, and so Sydney's number 1. And then when she was about this tall, I'd go over to Steve's house and watch her flip around on the carpet. Like, I'm not sure what she's doing over there, Steve, but she's doing something. But yeah. So she grew up, and so she became a gymnast. Is a gymnast. I treated Sydney when she was 15, 16 years old. She ended up having a pars fracture, which is very common in gymnasts. And these gymnast people, they're wired a little bit different, like bull riders. They're strong as bulls. They don't want to listen to you very often because they're just so competitive, and they're a different breed of people. That's just the way they are. We have a lot of those people here in Plano. So I met Sydney and I had to get her to calm down, let it heal, take some time, rest it for a little bit, take some steroids, the right dose, the right type.
Did she pay attention?
Not so much the first time. And then the second time she starts listening and said you got to just take a day off or two of gymnast, you know, because she's very competitive at that point in the stage in her career, because that's how they train. They train every day. So it finally calmed down for her. And then she went to Michigan State, was a 4-year letter person there at Michigan State, gymnast. And she's been working with me for the last 6 months as a marketing director of Eminent Spine. Also, she goes to the shows with me throughout the nation and also internationally to Mexico. So she's my right-hand person, if you will, spokesperson for Eminent Spine. That's how I met her a long time ago. And Steve's dad, I've known him many years before. He's elderly, probably 86 now, 83 at the time I was treating him. I've treated him with steroid injections, steroid medication. They just try to get him over that hump. But neither one of those three people need to have back operation, because you have pain. Just because you have back pain doesn't mean you need a back operation. So, and for these people, I had to get them to calm down, a little high strung. So it takes a while for them to listen, and they did. So they've been a lot better now.
Thankful I did.
Good. Before I ask you any questions, I want to show right now a couple of videos of you performing as a gymnast. So we'll do that right now. Well, Sydney, how do you like your new job?
I love it. I'm thankful to be here. Yeah. I'm glad he gave me an opportunity and just wanted to help people.
Yeah.
Let him know that, and he gave me the chance, and I've been loving it ever since.
The field of gymnastics is a field that requires a lot of discipline, doesn't it? I see that you were competing in bars, floor, and the vault.
Yes, that's throughout college.
Well, you've been doing that since you were a kid. It came natural.
Yes, I started when I was very young, probably around 3, 4.
You've been a patient here too.
Yes.
So are you limited in what you can do now?
No.
No.
Completely healed. Super thankful he took a conservative approach. I did listen. Something that was really funny as well, right when I came in, my first question was, when can I practice again? That's all I wanted to know. When was I good to go?
Now that you are working here and marketing director, right, of Eminent Spine, right, what do you tell people about Dr. Courtney?
I always say he's the man that does it all. Yeah, because it's true. He owns a hospital, runs it well. We have surgeries. I'm in the operating room with him as a salesperson as well, so I get to see those surgeries up front, which is cool.
Do you use some testimonials from the website, to show people what they think of Dr. Courtney?
Sometimes it depends, because they are different. Yeah. Eminent Spine and Advanced Spine are different sections. You know, one's medical devices and one's the clinic side. So I try not to mix that stuff. Most of the social media comes straight from Eminent Spine, what we make, what we sell, kind of who we are. So there is a separation there, but I mean, he's involved in all of it. So once you meet him, you kind of get to know what he does.
And that's one thing you casually mentioned to me. You're involved in marketing too.
Oh, yes.
Are you marketing to hospitals as well as doctors?
Yes, we are. We're marketing to hospital systems. We also market to sales reps. We also market to distributors. We also sell international too in Mexico. So we were just down there approximately 6 weeks ago for the National Spine meeting in Mexico. They had me come down there, and a lot of the Mexican surgeons down there are very grateful, and they're very well educated. We do cadaver labs too, so the city's involved in that too. That we have surgeons come out of different places in the United States of America, do cadaver labs with us to show them how to use the implants and how to use the technique and the implants in the right way.
It's amazing, everything you do. It's amazing.
This is all I know. I live and breathe it. I always tell Cindy, once you get in the vein of this business, and it's hard to get in that vein, and she's dead in it. So she's dead in the vein. So when we go to the shows, like we just were in Los Angeles about 3 weeks ago for North American Spine Society. It's the biggest spine show in North America. You know, I said, Cindy, I got to go get some water or something. So she mans the booth. So surgeons come up. And so I am unique because I said, see, look at all these spine guys, or spine surgeon people, and she sees me because we talk every day on a daily basis, but it's hard, all these docs, very smart individuals, but to get that level of energy to pull this off, to make a spine company, and to sell it and make it and market it, that's a different discussion. That's a different gear. And that's just the way I've been blessed, having different gear.
Yeah. How would you say your products represent, what's a market share, if you will, comparable products to other medical device companies?
Right. We don't have a large penetration in the market share because we're calling the Big Five, and those are the Big Five major publicly traded spine companies. So we do have a market share, but not near as big as they're billion-dollar companies. There's no boards here. There's no private equity here at Eminent Spine. I make the decisions. Our R&D account is very high because I do a lot of research and development for different implants, different biomechanics, different testing, different materials we touch. So our penetration is getting bigger because our products, and it's products and also instrumentation that we utilize is quicker and safer for the patient and also for the physician, and this is quality instruments.
Yeah. Where do you have your products manufactured?
I used to have them manufactured to about 2020 down in Austin area. We used to have about a 30,000 square foot manufacturing facility down there. So I've done all the CNC machines. I've learned that phase of it. So I got rid of that portion of it. So now we have contract manufacturers throughout the states. We have some in Connecticut, some in Indiana, Warsaw, Tampa. They're all spattered throughout the United States of America.
Yeah. Why would you say your products are better than other similar devices?
Right. So a perfect example is our 3D printed titanium cage. So the 3D printed market right now is a hotbed because you can take powder and spread it through space and weld those powder particles together with electrons, and then make a product. So we make our product based off what bone anatomy looks like and should be. So if the bone is trabecular bone or cancellous bone, we make our implants off that footprint, which is the human body. So we merge those two things together because I'm a spine surgeon. So we manufacture our products based on what the anatomy should be for the human body.
Yeah, so it's a synthetic product.
Bingo, exactly, yes.
But better than what human anatomy is naturally.
Well, it's comparing it very closely to it. So if I was a bone cell and if I was an osteoblast, or I'd want to go to that part of that cage. So I'd want to go there versus maybe a different material. So it draws bone cells to help increase your fusion rate. And there's a different. So if you take that on an electron microscope, you can see how closely it is related to the cancellous bone in the human body. So it mimics the body, but not as good as it, but it's awfully close to it.
That's amazing.
And that's a whole different process.
Gotten into the chemistry of the bone.
Oh, yes, you have to.
See how you can make it better. Was God watching?
I'm sure he was. He's watching something. Hope he watched this episode, but I'm sure he has.
I mean, it's really amazing.
But it's a whole different world, so it's not a part-time job. I've been doing it, for 37 years. I've been doing biomechanics. And
So doing surgery is only 2 days a week?
Right.
And the rest of the time is getting involved with the marketing of the products and the distribution of the products, and that's why Brent helps you a lot on that. And doing research. So in your spare time, you're mainly doing research.
I'm typically working out early in the morning. I'm a morning person, so I'm a 4 o'clock guy.
And do you have your labs here, or do you?
No, we have them at the hospital. So our next cadaver lab is going to be in the University of Miami. It's going to be an SI joint fusion lab. So we invite surgeons throughout the states to come in to do that portion of it. We've also had surgeons come down to help us with the scoliosis system, which is now launching now. So we've had 2 or 3 surgeons come out of Chicago, out of Florida. So they're coming in to give us input because that's their expertise is scoliosis. And I'm not a scoliosis doctor, but they are. So I listen to them and vice versa. So we create implants.
Is it possible to create an implant for a person who has scoliosis so that they can walk better and perform better in their older age?
Right, and that's what we're doing right now. So that bandwidth of when you operate on that patient is very important. There's a timeline of their age group, which may be better, and now it's minimally invasive. So you can do a minimally invasive operation with small incisions versus the big, massive incisions, which save the patient so much time in recovery. So the technology, with robotic technology, is coming on as well. We're also merging with another company soon to merge our pedicle screw technology with a robot. So the first quarter of next year, we should have access to a robotic system as well, which is a very big, it's just used in the market now.
Are you involved with the design of those products too?
Not so much the robot, but the product, yes, and how that product merges with that robotic arm. So we're in the process right now having our robotic instrument merged with that robot, and that's in the FDA hands right now. So you have to qualify that through the FDA before you put a screwdriver, quote, on a robotic arm, and that robotic arm is putting the pedicle screw in someone's body. So you have to be dead on perfect on these things. So we're doing it right now.
Would you say all robotic surgery is pretty accurate these days?
I think they've gotten better with it. Some cases need robotic. Some cases need MIS, some cases need open surgery, but I think robotics, they are slowly making a move in this market because they are. Will it replace a surgeon's hand, in my opinion? No. So it's definitely there, though.
You must be buried with all this information.
It was a lot to learn. I'm still learning. I've learned a lot, but got a lot to go still.
You can appreciate it because of what you did before, your gym.
Right, yes. I had quite a few injuries myself, so it's kind of seeing what goes into it.
I had to go to all these shows myself. This year we probably went to 15 shows. Some I go by myself, and now she's going with me now. And the people behind the booth at the other booth said, "I can't believe it, Dr. Courtney, you actually got someone working with you today." So well, find someone who can run as much as I can. Yeah. So she's been a very blessing to work as hard as I am because she's disciplined in what she does. Yeah. I'm a very disciplined, structured person. So she has the energy to pull it off, and she's done a very good job with me.
Well, I am very impressed. You're amazing. And thank God you have someone following with you, huh?
You have to have that energy.
Yeah, that's what he calls it. He calls it the fever.
Yeah, the fever.
Yeah.
We have the fever at Emmett Spine.
Well, I want to thank both of you for being on the show.
Thank you.
Likewise.
Thanks for joining us. You can get more information about our guest and the issues at insiderexclusive.com.